70 years ago, the Atlantic was a grim arena of intense and bitter warfare. Merchant ships bringing supplies from America to Britain were coming under devastating attack by German U-boats strangling our vital supply line. By March 1941, the situation was so grave that Churchill set up the Battle of the Atlantic War Cabinet. The Prime Minister knew that unless the rate of convoy losses could be reduced, Britain's very ability to carry on was on a knife edge. U-boats were pushing further out into the mid-Atlantic. As there was no threat from the air, they had almost complete freedom to operate. And in the Eastern Atlantic, giant Condor bombers flying from bases on the Bay of Biscay were also causing alarming losses to Allied shipping. The pressing need to provide air cover demonstrated only too clearly the strategic importance of carrier-borne aircraft to fill the treacherous 500-mile gap in the middle of the North Atlantic.
Fleet Air Arm rose to the challenge. Hurricanes were taken to sea in merchant ships and launched by rocket-powered catapults. It was an extraordinarily courageous undertaking. They took off, knowing that their only recovery option was to bail out or ditch in the sea and hope to be picked up. I flew martlets from HMS Audacity, Britain's first escort carrier. Landing on their tiny decks was quite daunting. The deck could pitch as much as 65 feet, but patrols continued regardless, often in filthy weather.
The battle for control of the Atlantic was so vast in scale that it is easy to overlook the vital part played by the Fleet Air Arm. Over 40 naval air squadrons flew some of the most hazardous missions imaginable during the arduous 6-year campaign. But the remarkable contribution made by the Swordfish, an aircraft that was considered obsolete before the war, is little known. These fabric biplanes and their air crews, many only 19 or 20 years old, flew in open cockpits in all that the North Atlantic could throw at them. Dense fog, mountainous seas, and bitter cold, fending off attacks by the U-boats. Sometimes pilots would crash land back on the deck, and maintenance crews worked on exposed flight decks in sub-zero temperatures to get the aircraft repaired and ready to take off, again at first light. With its low speed and excellent maneuverability, the Swordfish was the only aircraft available that could fly from the short decks of merchant ships. They flew 4 hourly patrols, keeping U-boats submerged. This exploited the U-boats' weakness, restricting their freedom of movement. It was this deterrent effect that dramatically helped stem Allied losses. By 1943, all convoys had air cover, and it made a real difference. Without the protection provided by the Swordfish, many of the convoys would not have reached the British Isles or Russia with their vital supplies. The story of the Swordfish and the casual heroism and indomitable spirit of her crews sits at the heart of our nation's naval aviation heritage. To see the Swordfish flying today is a poignant reminder of the courage of the young men who flew her and the great price paid to keep the vital Atlantic lifeline open. Keeping her flying today, over 70 years later, is testimony to her importance, not just to the Royal Navy, but to the nation. We have a duty to take the utmost care of her, and I urge you to give generously to provide the financial support she needs to secure her long-term future. The Swordfish was the untiring protector of those who sailed the seas on our behalf. Please help protect her, as she helped protect so many.